There's a nice one. Anything unique, just something cool to flip. I can't hold him. That's a pretty one. He's mean, little sucker. He didn't get to fight. That 7.6 heavy, he didn't have no time to fight. He was still trying to fight when I got him up in here. You know, this is one of my absolute favorite techniques. If there was one way that I could fish every single tournament and have confidence that I'm gonna get paid and have a shot to win, it's gotta be flipping. And people a lot of times, they think about flipping and they think about grass, laydowns, log jams, all that type of stuff. But a lot of times, it's just anything that you come to that looks like a bass would be positioned there. It's a really good thing to flip. And we just came to an old boat dock that's got some wood and stuff washed up around it with a little bit of current hitting it. It's just kind of one of those techniques that it's not situational. It's kind of just one of those things that whenever I need a bite, I can be super precise. I feel like I can get in and out of the high percentage areas extremely efficiently. And it's definitely my favorite way to fish a tournament. So a lot of times whenever I'm flipping down the bank, you know, my boat's moving fast a lot of times, faster than I say most people that I fish with that also flip a lot. But I don't like for my bait to move very fast. A lot of times I flip it in somewhere and I've already picked out where I think that fish is going to be sitting. So I'll let my bait go to the bottom. My bait sunk for a long way, so it's probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 feet deep right there. I'm gonna hop that a few times. If I flip up there and like behind that boat in 2 feet of water, a lot of times I know as soon as my bait goes in, if there's a fish sitting there, it's seen it. And a lot of times for flipping, I feel like it's a reaction bite. Like that bait falls in, it's on a little bit heavier than average weight, and it's falling pretty quickly to the bottom. They've got to decide if they're gonna eat it or if they're not. So I feel like it's a reaction strike, so I hop it in there. I like to just pick where I want it to go, let it fall through one really good clean time. I'll hop it a time or two, and then I'll reel it in and make a new presentation. Like I said, the only time that I do something a little bit different from that is in super thick water, super thick cover or deeper than average water. That's whenever I'm gonna soak it and hop it around. So for the most part, I go pretty quick with it. I just dive it in there a time or two, and then I, make a new presentation. Snatched him right out of the water. When people think about flipping, you think about big bass and heavy cover, but it just catches them all. You see a lot of people just burning down the bait, throwing spinner baits, buzz baits, vibrating jigs, swim jigs, everything. And it does seem like you can go behind them and generate another bite or two. And a lot of times you can go behind yourself. So, I missed that one. A lot of times, if you go through an area throwing whatever, a buzz bait or something, a lot of times if you get a couple bites, you can turn around and go back through there and actually flip and get another bite even behind yourself. So it's definitely another way to catch fish that are super tight to cover that really can't get another bait to them. I prefer to flip whenever there's a lot of current, because a lot of times those fish will suspend or they'll get underneath the place where it's actually breaking the current. So a lot of times if there's multiple things piled up, you can't really present your bait to them unless you're using something with a little bit heavier weight and actually flipping in there. So, and whenever the current's got stuff piled up, it just seems like to me it's the most efficient way to get to them. You can catch them flipping every type of cover and every type of watercolor. You just got to kind of make a couple little nuance changes. There's another one up in there. Look at how healthy. I mean, look at how he's built. He's as big around as he is long. Just a beautiful little fish. Crazy how thick he is. I mean, look at that thing. But couldn't deny it. He had his nose right up there, right in the backside of where all them logs and stuff had washed up. I mean, he was just tight up in there. I had just flipped 3 feet further out, and I'd also flipped on the upside of that, and he didn't bite. He was as tight up in that cover as he could possibly get. I'm gonna kind of take y'all through my rod, reel, line, everything set up for flipping. You know, when I first started fishing years ago, it was kind of the first rod that I dedicated to like a specialty rod. Like the first one that I ever rigged up, I had a bunch of like 7.3 mediums and stuff like that I kind of used for everything. But early on, I dedicated a rod to flipping, and I've had that ever since. I've always had one ready there, ready, laying. And there's certain properties in the rod that you need to have. But first we'll go through the reel, the line. This is the kind of stuff that never ever changes. Fastest reel that I can get, 8.3 to 1, 13 fishing Concept C. And the main reason for that is I'm flipping that bait in there. It's going into a really small strike zone in my opinion, and then I'm just reeling the bait out and then making another pitch with it. So the fastest I can get that bait in, back to me, and make another presentation with it, the better. Now, I want something really fast also, because when you're flipping shallow and those fish are moving very fast away from the cover, you need to be able to catch up with them. I always use at least 20-pound fluoro. My sweet spot is 22-pound Sunline Shooter. That's the one that I use 99% of the time. A ½ ounce tungsten weight. I will deviate that depending on the depth of the cover, how thick the cover is, stuff like that, but a ½ ounce is a standard for me. We've got a 5/0 straight shank Gamakatsu hook, and then the Crush City Bronco Bug, Green Pumpkin, Black Flake. Unique appendages on here. It's got a unique swimming action, flat out catches them. And then the bread and the butter of the setup, the thing that makes it all come together is the rod you're gonna use. This is a 7'6", heavy, fast, 13 fishing Muse rod. This is a new one. A lot of us got a lot of input on this. This is a phenomenal rod. A lot of us had input into this rod. All the pro staff guys at 13, the rod designer, he fishes a ton too. He knows what you need. And there was a couple things that came up when you're talking about designing rods. You always hear the term power, action. Those are the two buzzwords in fishing rods. And then you hear about people want it to be light. They want to be extremely light. One thing we did is shorten up the foregrip. You know, it's got a metal foregrip. It's going to be really secure. That reel is not going to budge whenever you're punching mats and stuff like that. You don't want your reel to ever be shaking or moving or anything like that. One of the best things though is we got Fuji guides on here. Went with a size number 5. You want to have a little bit bigger guides for braid, and then fluorocarbon you can actually go down to a smaller guide. So a number 5 guide is really the sweet spot. These are Fuji guides, and whenever you drop down a couple sizes on guides, it really lightens up the weight of the rod, especially on that tip section. You can see the rod's a little bit thicker at the butt section than some other rods, and the reason for that is these rods have to have a taper where they get from bigger to smaller. And whenever you start with a bigger butt section, you can leave a lot of power in the midsection and still have that rod be thick. And then as it tapers down, you get a really good fast action bend to those rods. So that's one of the things that made that Muse rod so fast and so powerful at the same time, was having that taper the way it is. That's one thing that all of us agreed on. All the pro staff, we wanted a line of rods that was super, super powerful. They would hold up to the abuse, had good guides on them, but still had those fast actions, and they nailed it with the Muse, and that's why I've been using them so much for flipping and frogging and stuff like that lately, but especially flipping, 7.6 heavy is hard to beat. And there's a nice one. Something completely different. Caught him on the exact same rod, bait, everything. I caught him out the grass. Pretty little chunky fish, you can tell. Probably up there on bait, shad, something. But I mean, that's what makes this such a go-to technique for me, is how many different places you can catch them. Caught some off docks, one out of log jam, caught them out of grass. Whatever you want to do, that bait seems to get it done. So just a pretty little fish. But I mean, that's just what makes this technique so special, is it's not a situational bait. It's more of a style, you know. It's like when you need a bite in heavy cover, you just pick it up and just fish everything with it. So that's why I always keep one.